Welcome to the Leadership Question of the Day podcast. I'm your host, John White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. Let's jump straight into today's leadership question. How much do you trust others? That's today's leadership question, and I'm asking you this question because I recently spoke on a podcast to a wonderful leader named Joe Folkman, who has written 10 books, and one of the things that really stood out for me was this statistic that he mentioned, that if you go up and ask one question to people, you can then find out a direct correlation between that question and where they're based in terms of that country's GDP. And the question is, how trustworthy are people? And what they found is that when 5% of people answer that question, not trustworthy, when only 5% of those people answer, yes, people are trustworthy in general, you'll end up with a GDP that might be in the 5th percentile. But an organization is not that different from a country when it comes to trust. And one country that really stood out was Sweden, where 60% of people said, yes, people are trustworthy. And if you look at Sweden's GDP or the United States and Australia, we're about 40% of people. And so there's this direct correlation between this one question and a country's GDP. And it makes me wonder, as leaders, how we trust others. And this is a moment to step aside and look back objectively at your family of origin, look back objectively at your country of origin, and think about the circumstances you've grown up in, and answer the question: how trustworthy are people? How much do you trust people? I want to encourage you to think about this and to challenge yourself in this and to grow in this, because there's a great idea called the trust wager that I heard Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great and Built to Last. He talked about this on a podcast with Tim Ferriss. And it was a mentor of his who had this idea of a trust wager. And he said, you know what, you're always making a bet. It's a trust wager because you can make one of two bets. You can choose to go through life betting that people aren't trustworthy. And sure, you'll protect yourself from some pain, and you'll protect yourself from some really big disasters, maybe. Or you can choose to make a bet in your life, and you can bet that anyone you meet, your first assumption is you're going to make a wager. You're going to bet that they're trustworthy. And yes, this means that you probably will experience some heartache. There will be some big pain when people do let you down, because that happens. But what you end up with is these fulfilling relationships. In work, you end up with these beautiful relationships with people because you choose to trust them, that flourish into opportunities. And the downside of making a wager that people aren't trustworthy is that you miss out on all of that. So what would it look like for you to trust people more readily? When you walk into a room, when you meet a new employee, when you meet a new person in your social setting, what might it look like for you to walk in with an assumption that they're trustworthy? Now, the caveat is we're not saying to just give everyone your bank details and give everyone access to your finances, but rather to have an assumption that whenever you meet someone or start working with someone, you go, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume you're trustworthy unless you prove otherwise. When a lot of us, I think if we're honest, we say, I'm going to assume you're not trustworthy unless you prove to me you are. Have a think about that today. And remember that just like a country's GDP, if you can be more trusting as a leader in particular, it's going to really help you to build trust with your people, because they're going to feel trusted and they're going to feel like you have their back, that you're a guide from the side. As Mark Plitzerwaite says, who came on my podcast, be a guide from the side, choose to trust people, get alongside them, give them the benefit of the doubt. And overall, it's the right bet to make. Well, I hope today's leadership question has helped you in your leadership and put a stone in your shoe. That's what that's what I love to say, is that my role, I believe, working with leaders is about putting a stone in your shoe. So something you were really comfortable with, now you're walking a little bit uncomfortably, going, is there a better way to do this? How do I handle this? And that's because no growth is comfortable. So I hope that's okay. I appreciate you taking the time. I don't take it lightly. And if you are just joining us, then make sure you check out our website, consultclarity.org, consultclarity.org. We have so much free content on there for you, including the 7 Questions on Leadership series. So more than 1,500 leaders around the world, different roles, different sectors, have filled out the 7 questions on leadership. In-depth answers on how they lead, what they've found most challenging, how they structure their time, what book or books have been most significant for them. There is so much gold on there. You could go and basically live in that part of our website for a few weeks, I think. So make sure you go and check that out. It's free. And hey, we would love to interview you for our 7 Questions on Leadership series. Your leadership, based on your context, your life, and your experience, I believe that you can bring something that other leaders can learn from. I truly do. And so it's completely free to get involved. It's a great way to give back if you're loving this content. And you can do that by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest, and then click on the page, fill out the form to express your interest, and we can get you going to fill out the 7 questions on leadership. We also have a free resource on our website. It's right at the top, consultclarity.org on our homepage, and it's called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook with interviews from 10 world-class leaders, and it's right there for you to download. It's completely free, and awesome resource. It's very popular, so check that out. We also have a daily email, and I know that our more than 15,000 leaders who subscribe get a lot of value from that. We highlight the best content from our blogs, from our podcasts, from our books and books we're reading. It also gives you exclusive and limited access and early access to our masterclasses and workshops. So I really try to make it something as helpful and as valuable as possible. That's my commitment. And so go to consultclarity.org/subscribe if you're interested in all things leadership, and you can become part of that community. Now, my gift to you with everything we're doing, particularly with this podcast, the Leadership Question of the Day, is to work really hard to provide the best leadership content to invest in you and your leadership. Your gift to me would be this. If you're finding this helpful, if this helps you in your leadership, then there is something you can do that makes a massive difference, and that is to write a review or rate our content. Wherever you're listening or watching, rate our content, write a review, make sure you subscribe or follow. It might seem small to you to do that, but it adds up and it helps us to help more leaders become the best they can be. It also means a lot to me personally whenever I see you sharing our content, so thank you so much for that. If you do share it on social media, then look for me, Jono White, and try to tag me, and look for Clarity and tag us. And I promise we are always looking for content shared by our community. When people share our content, we're looking to engage with you. And there's also a chance that we may actually share what you write as a post with our followers. So if you do that, there's a chance you'll be shared as well. Last of all, you can check out my book called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because more than 50% of the leaders I coach, 50% of the sessions, where I coach leaders, this comes up again and again and again. And it's leaders saying, Jono, how do I deal with this difficult person? Or how do I deal with this person? And I'm finding it so difficult. We're just on a different wavelength. And that's because difficult conversations are difficult. And I find this is one of the biggest challenges for leaders in the world today. And that's where Step Up or Step Out is a 3-step process to help you deal well with difficult people. I really believe it's a book that can help you in your leadership. So go and check that out. It's on Amazon, Step Up or Step Out, Jono White. If you just look that up, or go to store.consultclarity.org/book and you can get it there. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode of the Leadership Question of the Day next time. I hope today has helped you take another step towards becoming everything you're meant to be. We'll see you next time.